So another quick representation of ideal or perfect terrain for these kind of dogs to get their stimulation in the city. This is a rather narrow creek, probably about 10 to 15 metres wide, that's flooded a few months ago, and now it's probably about 50 to 60 metres wide. Most of the length through this sort of riparian zone in between housing and in between suburbs. It's actually the border of two different councils, Brisbane City Council and the Redland Bay Council, Moreton Bay Council. So if you can find these kind of environments, it's perfect just to give the dogs a stimulation. So the light's going here, but you can see here where Mumu is sitting, so there's a lot of spaces underneath the foliage, the low foliage. There's a few sort of tunnel kind of formations, such as that. What caught my attention initially was from up there, seeing the drain, follow it down, see a hole. So with a closer investigation of that, then we see, you can't really see it very well, but see there's a bit of a tunnel through there. And so over there, underneath here, so you see there's holes. There's space underneath this low foliage that sort of goes in a few feet at least. See? Down under there. So we can let the dogs go through because it's cold. It's about 15 degrees. So there's only probably 3, maybe 4 months in Brisbane that you can do this. Otherwise, there's just too much risk of snakes. So there's still a bit of risk of pythons now, but I have 7 dogs at the moment, so I'm kind of banking on the numbers being the safety. However, if they do separate, then they do become vulnerable to such things. But as you can see here, the terriers are getting right underneath. So this is ideal habitat for foxes, rats, feral cats, rabbits. Not so many rabbits in this area anymore. But this is the kind of terrain and environment that you get the rabbits, foxes, pretty much any feral animal. This is how they can spread and travel from rural and country areas into the city and pretty much wherever through the watercourses with the vegetation on either side, and this is where they can live quite happily and prosper. They can really thrive in such urban environments because this is a reserve for nature and wildlife. So generally people don't really come to these environments so much. The problem is with a lot of these environments that the native wildlife have already been decimated and aren't living here anymore. So what does live here is generally living in trees, and they're the ones that have thrived with human development, whilst everything else has simply perished, disappeared. So what you get is the feral animals sort of dominating the ground, which being the foxes, feral cats, feral dogs, pigs, rabbits and hares, and of course rats. However, you do get a lot of native rats in these kind of environments as well, particularly in this area the water rat, which is quite a large rat. It's supposed to be quite revered by the local indigenous population, and very good to eat if it's not your totem. So we do occasionally see one of those larger water rats, but fortunately for them, they jump straight in the water. They're never too far away from deep water and they get straight into it, and the dogs have got no chance. So Just a quick wrap up here. You can't really see it with the light, but the dogs are spread here. So we've got one over there about 15 metres, that's Razzle. We've got Xena here, and we've got Elvis is over there about 15 metres over there. And then we have the pups on there. Elvis is down there now, so he's about 20 metres there. And then we have the pups in between. So now, in that time, Razzle's still there. Xena's moved down into the centre point. So always having extremely efficient geometry. Whereas if anyone does find anything, as soon as they sound the alarm, the rest of them will cut the angle from wherever they are, whatever their position is, generally a sort of triangular geometry, and they will very quickly arrive at the place of activity. So if there's something that's trying to get away, there's a very good chance that it might be intercepted or flanked by the rest of the group. So certain dogs work in these larger groups. So it's a very good exercise to be able to do this for myself as well as for all of the dogs, just to be able to work in a larger group of 7, 4 of them being pups. This is how most of the terriers and dachshunds used to work hundreds of years ago, up until mid last century pretty much, where it's not so much the general thing for these dogs to be working out there at least a few times a week, tracking down their quarry or their prey and engaging. The Patterdale Terrier was a bit of a different terrier, where it was quite common for it to be more of a one-on-one engagement. Obviously if there was more than one, then they would work together. They still have the same kind of behaviour, that they will sound the alarm and you'll be able to tell by the different types of barking as to how serious the engagement is and what kind of quarry or prey they may have come across, and whether it's quarry or whether it's prey. A lot more definitive than any other breed to my experience. The closest thing being Jack Russell, for instance, just gets very excited and keeps a continual barking. Dachshund Jack Russell is the same, very excited, continual barking. Slight variation in the bark, but the Patterdale Terriers certainly do give a lot more information in the different types of barking that they do. We spend a lot of time doing this kind of activity. Very, very rarely do we even find anything that may even give the slightest opportunity to engage, other than hares. When we go to certain places we can find lots of hares, and they have absolutely no chance of catching a hare. Just way too fast. We've never found a fox den, so anytime we encounter a fox, then it's very quickly gone. Even if the foxes decide to turn around and play with the dogs, they've got absolutely no chance of being caught. Super, super fast, super agile, super cunning. So that's about it. Sorry, the light's not so good, but just fantastic terrain, so had to try and give some kind of documentation and demonstrate it a bit.